Good afternoon, everybody. Rick Garcia, G12 Communications. Today, we're going to highlight the G12 Contact Center application. So everyone out there looking at Omni-Channel, everyone looking at a distributed organization or distributed contact center who's looking for an integrated opportunity or integrated platform, this is something to look at. At G12 Communications, we provide SIP trunking, cloud PBX, or UCaaS, and now we're rolling out our CCaaS platform. I thought this would be a great opportunity to show everyone just a quick video on the power of the contact center application. So with us today, Robert Winder is a pro at the contact center, in the contact center space, and he's going to give us the 360-degree view of the G12 contact center platform. Robert?
Thanks very much, Rick, and hi everyone. Nice to connect with you today. So what I want to do first of all is talk a little bit about the platform and how we deliver telephony. The first thing to think about is delivering calls through the platform can either go directly through a web browser, so can all be delivered remote, no hardware required, direct into your agent's desktops through Chrome or Firefox. We can also deliver calls out to a PBX line, a UCaaS endpoint, or in fact a mobile phone or a home line. So that means particularly for today, in today's world where you have agents that are in your office and working from home, we're able to support the infrastructure. Whatever your agents, however your agents need to connect, we can provide that same connectivity.
So essentially, you can use WebRTC, which is the phone built into the browser of the application. And if you're not using that, then this lays right over any kind of platform you have today, whether it's a PBX platform that's a Cisco or Mitel or Avaya, and you've got a phone sitting on your desk. This will overlay right over that system, because what the system does then is call outbound to one of those devices and bring those calls into the platform, or bring those users into the platform via an outbound call. Is that right, Robert?
That's absolutely correct. Yes. So any endpoint, any telephony endpoint to be called is now can be added as an agent to our platform.
That's great, because a lot of organizations out there have an existing handset or existing phone system there. They've got earpieces and investment in earpieces all throughout. And so if you got these big organizations or big contact centers, it's nice that they can reuse the same information or the same systems they have on their desk. Or if you're a UCaaS customer, the nice thing is that you can bring that call right into your existing system to make transfers out into the rest of the organization, things like that.
So the other thing to think about is how we bring in agent desktop and applications that are required by the agent in order to be able to support the calls. And what we have in our platform here is two sides of the agent desktop. So as you can see on the left-hand side is all about the media control and the elements required for the agent. So if you follow my mouse as it's moving down, what I'm doing here is just identifying to the left of this is all related to the agent. So agent status, activities, current interactions that you're working on, any queues that you're a member of, and the statistics perhaps showing you how many emails are waiting here, how many web chats or phone calls are waiting for you to handle. So what that really means is, from an agent perspective, I can see that today I might be working, or right now I might be working on email, but I can see that perhaps as the inbound queue starts to grow, that perhaps I need to switch away from the email activity and start taking calls in order to maintain the service levels required for that inbound telephony queue. And that's just a simple switch of an activity, prioritizing myself on an inbound activity. So it allows me as an agent to really get a handle of how best to treat some of these interactions as they are coming in. To the right of the screen, so everything where you see my mouse moving across the top, are different applications which can be layered in for the agent to handle. Typically, as we know, that an agent will handle 3 to 5 applications. Very often, you'll have copy and pasting between applications, where one app, you'll have a CRM, perhaps an ERP, perhaps an accounting system, an e-commerce system, where you'll have to switch and transition as an agent from one application to another. So what we do here is we position all of those apps as tabs inside of the agent desktop. That means that you don't need to rely on the browser tabs across the top, but in fact what you do is rely purely on the agent desktop tab. Now, very often what you'll want is an integration. So for example, a screen pop, we're familiar today with the time saved by collecting information in an IVR, using that information to route the call to the right agent, finding the right skill, and then use the data that we collected in the IVR to also screen pop to the agent. That screen pop will save 15 to 20 seconds right off the top of the call, just by getting the agent better situated and presenting the right information to them the first time through. So here we have an example of that. We have a Salesforce website. As you can see, it's just neatly embedded right in the agent desktop. If we were logged in and we'd done an integration, we can take the data that comes with the call from the IVR and use that data to then pop the screen inside of the agent desktop here. That integration work is really simple to do. We provide a set of APIs for technical teams, and that can either be your own in-house technical team, or it can be G12's technical team, and we can support you in that development work as well. It's a really trivial piece of activity that we do on behalf of each customer as we roll out our service.
So really, we can in those tabs across the top there, we can position any application that agents may be working, whether it be an ERP or a patient check-in application or a ticketing system of sorts,
Yep.
or their Salesforce, their operating system behind the scenes of the organization. So we can bring that data right out of the phone call and the IVR. So if there's information left in the IVR, we can go right into that and bring that in as a screen pop and show it to the agent.
That's exactly correct. What you're seeing here is obviously how we would integrate, for example, Salesforce. In this case, it can just be dropped in as a separate plugin application that would appear across the top. So really easy to do. The next thing I wanted to show you, though, is actually some live interactions. So if you imagine today what you have is three to five applications that the agent needs to use. What would the world look like if you could just have a single application that could integrate with those 3 to 5 business applications, pull in data in real time, and present that information to the agent from a single desktop? First thing I'm going to do is just come over here to our messaging tab. This is how we integrate to web chat, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Viber, Twitter direct messages. All of those could appear as separate chats coming in. So a web chat, for example, would be a chat box which is placed on your own website, or a Facebook Messenger where you would go to your Facebook page and use that Facebook page to tell customers that they can reach you through the Messenger client that they have right there. The next thing I'm going to do is to switch over into a chat activity. So let me share with you a little bit about activities. Activities are the types of things that you typically want to record for reporting purposes. So when you want to track your agent's activities, whether they were taking calls, emails, chats, making calls in an outbound environment, what we want to be able to do is to capture all of that and record it. Now, here as part of the demo, what we're doing is we've linked our activities very much to the channel. So whether it's an inbound channel or an outbound channel, in terms of the overall omni-channel approach. But for you, from a deployment perspective, it may be you want to think about this more about a business process. So that would enable you to capture how many people called in about a retail banking product. How many people called in for a particular healthcare reason? Did they call in for a telephone consultation? Did they interact with us because they wanted an appointment? And what we can have are separate queues and separate activities to track all of those from a reporting purpose. So for now, what I'm going to do is just to set myself onto the chat activity. A couple of things will happen. On the left-hand side here, if you remember back to the queues, what you're seeing here, now these queues have gone green. That means that as an agent, I can see which queues I'm working, which queues I'm a member. All of the queues that you see here, I'm a member of, but the green ones are the ones that I'm actually working in this interaction today. So with that said, I'm actually going to come over here to my Facebook page. I'm going to open up my my Facebook page, and as you can see here, I've got a nice little Facebook Messenger window open. This is just using Facebook's regular Messenger product, and I can start typing. The first thing that's happened is a message has been sent into the platform from an agent perspective, and now as you can see, this agent has now got a second chat icon down here. You can see that this is coming in from Facebook, and if I click this, it opens up a Facebook session. I join the chat. I can see the chat from the customer. Now, a couple of things that the key to note here. we can templatize the responses. Perhaps you want to send a standard welcome message. If I just hit send, that sends that message back. I can do emojis, I can do likes, I can send the regular types of responses that people would imagine. The same is true. Here I'm demoing Facebook, but it could equally be Twitter, it could be web chat, it could be Viber, it could be WhatsApp. So there's really an unlimited number of chat systems that we can integrate to. Now, the other thing I want to show you is what happened on the right-hand side of the screen. So as I mentioned to you, what if you had an environment where all of your interactions could be managed by a single agent desktop, which meant that your agents didn't need to copy and paste from application to application. They didn't need to remember which tab they had to go into in order to look up a particular piece of information. And at the same time, you could capture contact dispositions really simply. So what actually happened is when we started to chat, the Facebook ID, the person we were chatting with, got pasted in, and it pulled up this information from the database in the back end, and it allowed the agent to just simply click to open up. And now what I have is a 360-degree view of this particular customer. So as an example, I can see customer information, perhaps some demographic data regarding the customer. This information can be pulled in from your CRM system or from your electronic medical records, and it's just pulled in for the purposes of displaying. No other reason, so there's no, we're not storing this data necessarily in our environment. What we do store is some of the contacts. So for example, how many emails, how many phone calls, how many chats, how many Facebook messages, how many WhatsApp messages, and so on. And then you can also browse through those and see exactly which ones this customer has contacted us about in the past. So you can see this customer is pretty active, which in the purposes of a demo, as you can see, we're very active here. But nevertheless, it gives a good impression of how you can quickly tab through and get a complete overview of the customer and what they've been calling in or interacting with us about.
Yeah, nice account overview, right? So as soon as you see that, I mean, this information is automatically displayed and you have the entire history there in front of you. That's so helpful.
Exactly. And let's go one step further now. So we also have these things called open tasks. Now, each of these panes that you see here, these kind of tabs, are entirely customizable to suit your business need. So imagine a world where you needed to display information from the CRM system with customer demographic data. Now we also want to know the most recent orders. Those most recent order systems, they come out of your data that's coming from your e-commerce site, for example. And I also want to know exactly what the status is of the deliveries and the shipments, which is coming from your ERP environment. So we could have 3 separate pieces of displayed information here, pulled out of information coming from 3 disparate systems. They can just get all of that information presented in nice one single display right at the very start. Now, let's assume that this customer is calling because they have a question or they have a complaint, and maybe it's a question about an invoice. Over on the right-hand side here, we have a set of configurable actions or contact reasons. So what these do is they create separate processes on the system that allows us to track exactly what this customer came in and wanted to do. So for example, here, Robert has a question about an invoice. Then the second thing is this customer then maybe have a question about wanting to place an order or check on the status of an order. And you can then track from a contact center perspective that there were 2 separate dispositions for this particular interaction. The first was an invoice disposition, and then the second was an order status disposition. So that's a great way for you to now be able to say exactly what's going on in my center and exactly what my agents are busy working on. Let's start the process here with an overview of the invoice. So typical scenario, customer calls in and says, I paid the invoice already, but you're not showing it as paid on your system. So what's going on? So I want to dispute this invoice. Now I want to introduce to you, one is that this data came out of a remote system. We don't store the invoice information, but this invoice data came from your accounting system. The second thing I want to introduce to you is to show how we find out as an agent what we need to do next. So here I get the opportunity to type into my knowledge base to search for disputing an invoice. Now, you can imagine the knowledge base as a way to instruct the agent how to treat this customer. So we can say this could be the agent script. related to this particular type of interaction that the customer is calling about, or I can provide some additional clarifying information. And I can use that information to inform the customer exactly of the status and what we need to do next. So what I'm also going to do now is just click that little plus sign up here. What that does is it adds the fact that we pulled up the knowledge for disputing, the knowledge-based item for disputing an invoice, and it attached it to the smart log. I'm also going to add a little bit of text that says, customer wants to dispute this invoice. I'm going to click plus. So it's a little note that the agent has added as a part of the overall interaction. And then I'm going to open up a dispute invoice task. So now I can say, okay, this is the invoice I want to dispute. If I click on that in my screen, we automatically paste the number in. So I'm going to specify that this invoice is unjustified. And again, it can come up. I can already say that the customer is paid already. I want to cancel the invoice because I've already paid that. And then I can say, customer paid last month. Oops. So just to give a simple explanation. Now I'm going to wrap up this particular action. This is a multi-screen action, as you can see here. What we've automatically done is we've collected the information related to this particular invoice. We can now instruct your ERP system to dispute this invoice. We can add a note into your CRM system, for example. These notes here can be automatically updated into your CRM environment, along with, for example, the contact disposition. If you remember back earlier on, I also added some items in the smart log. I can automatically paste those items into the smart log so they get automatically added as a part of the reason. So we added the fact that we looked up a knowledge-based item and the customer disagrees with the invoice. And we also added this note, the customer wants to dispute this invoice. So here, if I click next question, perhaps this customer, as I said, wants to check on the order status. So here I would just simply open up the fact that this customer is now also asking for an order information. And so I can select from a list of categories which can be defined for you. Let's just check a general. And here, maybe the customer was calling for opening hours information. Customer wants to visit the office. And that's it. And now if I hit finish, I've now registered effectively 2 different types of contacts for this particular customer. As you can see, the first contact was a disputed invoice. The second contact was a general opening hours and contact information. Those 2 things are now linked into a single view for reporting purposes. That's now enabled me to track and to record those. So at this point, to send out an email to let the customer know exactly what we discussed. And so again, I can insert the invoice. I can say this is what we did in terms of the dispute of the invoice. And then at the bottom there's a little customer satisfaction survey. And so I could actually click send right now, and that would send out the email to the users.
So without this business process engine that we have, what would have happened there before is you would have had the call come in and you'd navigate the different tabs. So you call in and you would typically open a ticket of some sort to register a call. Okay, I'm opening a ticket because someone's got a billing dispute, right? Then I would actually go to another tab or another system and say, okay, and I'm going to go into that system and I'm going to pull the invoice that they're looking for. I'll be looking through that system, and then I can come back and update the ticket. So I'm flipping between, at the very minimum, just with that first interaction, I'm flipping between an accounting system and the ticketing system to update my call. Then you add another interaction because that person also was calling about an order or placing an order or some other sort of interaction request. And now I've got to go get into a different system. Maybe it's a tracking system. Maybe it's the order system. And I've got to go look to see what's going on there.
That's exactly correct, Rick. And so the next time this customer then interacts with the business, the agent gets the view and says, okay, I can see that you called before about a dispute on an invoice. I can see who's handling that and know exactly what needs to happen. So there's now a tighter integration, if you like, between the front office and the back office part of the business. All of that is totally integrated with your ERP, CRM, e-commerce, electronic medical record systems, all nice and tightly integrated. But nevertheless, the agent always gets a 360-degree view we had a change of details, we had this opening hours request, and then we also have these open processes around the disputed invoice that we should work on.
As a business owner, I've always thought, simple, repeatable processes are the best thing we could do to scale an organization. The actions piece, for me, I love that section because again, you get call-ins. The call-ins are typically they're the same. I mean, you've got there's a commonality in the calls or emails that you get to support customers, and so having all the dispositions or the actions that an agent can take built in to a process that's shown in a single pane of glass is pretty exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So let me show you a little bit about some of the reporting capabilities here. We've got things like service levels, calls per hour, average talk time, average handle time. And these reports that you see here are context aware, so we can actually drill in and select and look at particular data around, for example, a particular day or a particular day of the week or a particular week of the year. I can also back out and pull up information to look at other parts of the system. For example, I could look at my traffic history. So calls that were handled in service level, calls that were outside the service level, calls that were abandoned, and look and just say, well, why is it that certain days of the week I have better results than others, right? So this allows me to really start to do some deep analysis from day to day, week to week, month to month. So as I mentioned, what we're also able to do is to track the interaction that we capture. With those interactions, we're able to capture exactly what types of contact dispositions happened within each of those interactions. So first off, you can see on the left-hand side here, the types of interactions on the channels that they came in, how many chats, how many inbound emails, phone calls, and so on some of these other tabs. And by the way, this is entirely configurable for you. We use a business intelligence tool to extract data from our system, but the customization is entirely defined based off of the interaction that we would have as we onboard you as a customer. So bringing you up on board and getting you up to speed with the platform, what we'll do is go through all of the requirements that you might have. And I would imagine at the start, you've got your own requirements from what you have today. And so the first thing to show is, yes, we can emulate what you already have from a reporting perspective, but actually to go beyond that with the advantages that we have by utilizing such a platform. It's really easy to just come in and export data into Excel or to print it into a PDF so that you can then share that with your colleagues.
So if an organization has a different way of showing their dashboard reports, maybe from an existing telecom system, maybe they use something like Power BI or Power BI.
Exactly. So what we do is we're able to export all of the data from the platform, and then you can map that data to your own VI tool and use third-party tools. You don't have to use ours, but you could use your own or develop web interfaces on top of the data that we provide access to.
And is this your typical wallboard, Robert, or is this not the wallboard? This is just reporting that anybody has access to.
Exactly. So this would be reporting for supervisors, for contact center managers, and for executives. For wallboards, obviously one of the great things today, back when I started in the contact center, you had 2 rows of ticker tape text that would show abbreviations, and you had to basically have a science degree or a statistics degree to understand what those abbreviations meant. And today, what we're able to do is to create very similar displays to this using our APIs to display information on large screen TVs, for example, pulling up information. You can also show current agent states, the number of calls handled in the last hour, the average handle time, the service levels, the targets, perhaps some messages. We often see our customers using those large screen displays to rotate through awards that they give out to agents. Agent of the day, agent of the hour, agent of the week, based off of current agent performance. Now, the other piece I wanted to show you was a little bit of administration and a little bit of the back end. And the reason for showing you this was just to kind of let you see how we handle some of the telephony routing and some of the routing when you want to find skills-based agents and how you want to build up your call flow and some of the capabilities that we have here. You can see that this is what we call our visual dial plan editor. This is a combination of IVR and routing. This is a combination that also integrates to your backend database to be able to pull in information and to be able to present that information to people that are interacting with your IVR system. In the US, obviously, most people are familiar with St. Jude Children's Hospital. They have a very simple call flow. It's an amazing contact center environment that they have. And what I've done here is just created a simple call flow that emulates what St. Jude Children's Hospital does. So when you call into St. Jude, the first thing it does is say, welcome, thank you for calling St. Jude Children's Hospital. Then it goes into a menu system which asks if you want to speak Spanish. If you do, you press the number 2, and then that will bring you into the Spanish queue. Here we have the simple playback. Here we have a simple menu where you press 2. If you don't provide any input, then you come into the English queue and we play a simple message that says, please press 1 for accounts, press 2 to make a donation, press 3 for all other inquiries. Again, really simple blocks where we can specify the menu that we play in simple files. We can allow barge in, we can accept number 1, 2, and 3, and then we end up with particular queues, so donation or account or the general queue. In addition to the very simple flow here, we can build in things like date and time-based routing. Now, as I said, this is a purely drag and drop environment, so I'm able to join together these blocks and to specify dates that we're open. So for example, let's say we're only open Monday through Friday, 6 till 6 in the morning Pacific till 6 at night Pacific, right? So that would get you a good 12-hour coverage. What we're able to do is to say anything that happens outside of those date and time blocks, this is how we should treat our calls. So we would simply drag blocks and open them up and select a voicemail queue, and then hang up that queue, hang up the call once the voicemail has been treated.
I just want to highlight that some organizations may have a need to activate, maybe it's prepaid cards, or activate wireless phone subscriptions in another platform with the database ties, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, yes, Rick. So here's a good example. So we have what we call a script access block. This access block is a way that we integrate into third-party systems. So it's probably likely that you have a third-party API that would do the credit card activation process. The caller would call in, we would collect some information from the caller, and then we would send a request to the credit card activation, providing the information that we had collected, and then receive a response. And then based off of that response, we can then play a message to the caller to say, okay, your credit card is now activated, or we can say your credit card wasn't activated, but we're going to send you to an agent to have them activate your credit card on your behalf. So we have if-then blocks. If you're familiar with logic conditions, what we're able to do using blocks like this is to evaluate service levels, the number of agents logged in, the number of agents available for a queue, the number of calls waiting, the estimated wait time, and then to be able to use those metrics for routing into a specific queue. So for example, if we know that we have a queue which is struggling to meet its service level, but we have an overflow, what we can do is to specify a service level for a particular campaign, and then have calls that we know would impact that service level be routed to an overflow. Another example is perhaps if the number of calls waiting in queue is greater than 3 times the number of agents, or 2 times the number of agents that we have logged into the queue, then perhaps what we want to do is to offer that person a call back and have them be able to come back into our system at a later date. So there are ways in which we can handle just by looking ahead and using the outbound capabilities of the platform to be able to better service the customer.
So Robert, we've talked a lot about inbound calls and inbound sort of processes. Let's talk just briefly about outbound. Is there a dialer included in this? What kind of dialing capabilities does this have?
Exactly. So as you can see down on the left-hand side here, as well as the chat and the telephony that we've already talked about, there is an outbound capability. With outbound, what we have is the ability to deliver integrated calling lists. So your CRM can update, or your ERP could update the calling list to call out, to reach out to customers. The dialing modes that we support are preview, progressive, and predicted dialing modes. So you're able to reach out to callers, to customers using one of those 3 different modes. We also have agent scripting. Now, interestingly, our agent scripting platform can be both used on the inbound and the outbound environment. You don't have to just link the agent script to the outbound. You can also do that on inbound as well. And we also have a number of disposition codes which are predefined, but you can entirely change those disposition codes and capture your own disposition codes. Other parts of the system, Rick, just to cover them quickly, we have what I would call Workforce Management Lite, because this is basically a step up from Excel. If you're used to managing workforce management, then we offer an additional service as a part of the platform that would offer you some good next step functionality. It's certainly not meant to compete with the likes of the full-blown workforce management tools. So if you have those already, we integrate into those. We provide data feeds into those to allow those workforce management tools. And then one final piece, everything on the system can be recorded. The recordings can be turned on and off based on the types of business flows that we're dealing with. So for example, we wouldn't collect PCI data or HIPAA related information. And then we can also use those recordings for quality monitoring of agents, where supervisors can listen to recordings and score those recordings. And we can also do customer satisfaction surveys from within the system. So at the end of the interaction, what we're able to do is to send a link through SMS or email or through the IVR system back to the consumer to allow the consumer then to score your interactions with your agents as well.
Oh, that's great. Quality assurance often is asked in scenarios where they are engaging. So banking as an example, they ask you ahead of the call interaction, would you be willing to take part in a survey so that when the call ends, they know to send this to a Q&A sort of, 1, 2, 3, or maybe it's getting your approval for a text message after after the call's done, and then you get a text message Q&A request. Well, Robert, this has been really, really great. I think for those that are looking for an omni-channel experience and for improving business process, I mean, more than ever now, remote agents went from 34% remote agents to now 73 or 75%. So in this sort of pandemic environment, the organization that was a brick and mortar contact center has now dispersed. And so having an omni-channel platform that's remote capable, if you will, right? That's a cloud system really allows people to take advantage of efficiencies across their organization and really understand how their organization's working and the calls coming into their organization or the interactions, if you will, now because of the omni-channel solution, but are really able to kind of get a handle on it with the remote agents. One of the things that I'm excited about, Robert, is that as a UCaaS and SIP trunking provider and CCaaS provider, we often see organizations layer on this application. So layer on CCaaS. So as an example, they may have an existing Cisco platform with our SIP trunks delivered into it. And now they're going to overlay CCaaS, still use maybe their Cisco phone on their desk, but they're also using our SIP trunks behind the scenes. The nice thing is that G12 serves as that traffic cop, if you will, right? So a call comes in, I'm sending it to the contact center. A personal call comes in or to an individual, I'm sending it to the Cisco call manager. So the ability of G12 to kind of deliver a layered approach, whether that be Teams integration or the contact center or UCaaS or SIP trunking, it really positions us well in the enterprise space. So this is just really exciting. Robert, thank you very much for your time today. This has been a great overview. And for those that have been traditional telephony subscribers or UCaaS subscribers, watching the power of an omni-channel platform, I think is going to be shocking to a lot of organizations.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to engaging with the customers more and learning more about your business. And thanks very much for the opportunity and the time spent.
Perfect, Robert. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Rick.